friends, it's time for us to talk about the full moon in Cancer. It's going to be peaking on Monday, January 13th, but you will still feel the energy of this full moon for the couple days after and the couple days before. You already were probably feeling it. So I'm going to tell you about this full moon, and we're going to do a tarot reading for you, of course, as well. And yeah, just kind of help you understand what's going on. So first of all, the moon is the planetary ruler of the sign Cancer, and its natural home is in Cancer. So the moon is feeling very much at home right now, and this also makes this full moon a time for like even greater intuition. And one of the themes of this full moon is literally home. Okay, so that might be something that you're kind of thinking about, like how to feel more comfortable at your home, or maybe things that aren't making you feel comfortable at home. This also just reminded me of the reading I did for the week ahead that I posted yesterday. If you haven't watched that, you might want to go and watch that, because there were a lot of things around like making sure that you are comfortable at home and like what does home mean to you, and those themes are kind of there. There's also themes around comfort and security and family, because Cancer, the traditional house that it rules is the 4th house, which is family and home and things like that. So those themes might be coming up regardless of what your astrological sign is, but you can also look more into how this full moon is going to actually impact you if you know your rising sign. So one thing that you might not be aware of is if you are reading horoscopes and astrology and stuff like that and looking at that based off of your sun sign is like the first sign that you probably ever learned, like based on just like the day that you were born. That is likely why horoscopes and stuff like that just doesn't really like totally click with you, because horoscopes are actually based off of your rising sign. You need to know the exact date, time, and location that you were born, and then you can find out your rising sign, and then you get your whole birth chart. Your birth chart is created off of your rising sign. So just a little tidbit about that for you. Every time there's a full moon, it's an invitation for you to reflect on how far you've come since the most recent new moon, as well as how far you've come since the most recent new moon in this sign. Okay, so our most recent new moon at all was on December 30th, and new moons are when we set intentions, and especially that new moon, you might have been setting intentions around the new year. So this is a really good opportunity for you to look at like, how far have you come since then? It's only a couple of weeks, but like, are you on the track that you want to be going on, or have you already kind of like reverted back, kind of ignored the intentions that you set on December 30th, or you know, the end of the year, the beginning of the year? Like, are you actually doing the things that you were wanting to? The full moon is an opportunity to check on that, so that you can like be thinking about how you might need to make adjustments going forward. But the other moon that you want to look at is how far you've come since the last new moon in Cancer, because we're having a full moon in Cancer. So like the last new moon in Cancer was on July 5th. So you can think about what was kind of going on then, what intentions did you have for yourself then, what were you setting then, and how far have you come since then. And that can also kind of help inform you of like adjustments that you want to make, so that you can be continuing to evolve in the way that you want to. We don't have to constantly be making progress in every area every single day. You know, progress isn't linear, and like sometimes it's a 2 steps forward, 1 step back situation. But if you kind of zoom out, how far have you come, and are you on the track, the path, you know, the staircase, whatever it is that you want to be on? This specific full moon in Cancer is also conjunct Mars, which is in retrograde. You don't need to understand all that, don't worry. But what that is telling us is that a lot of times the emotions that might be coming up with this full moon are actually emotions related more to the past, specifically for this full moon. And then also this full moon is making a trine to Neptune, which is in Pisces. Again, you don't need to understand what all that means, but the result of that is that you are even more likely to have a lot of like very intense dreams. Intense doesn't have to be bad. It just means that they're maybe more vivid. They might feel more real. They might really be emotional. I actually woke up this morning like with tears coming down my face, because I literally was like crying in my dreams last night. That's just an example of like an intense dream. It wasn't even bad. It was just how much I experienced it. So that might just be an example of how you might be dreaming over the next couple of days. This is a time where you oftentimes are more emotional, especially with the Cancer full moon. And one thing that I like to think of with the Cancer full moon, so Cancer is represented by the crab, and this is a really good opportunity for you to also look at like, where have you been like shoving your emotions like down into like your shell, and how have you maybe also like contained yourself into too small of a shell? Maybe in order to protect yourself, you've kind of like limited yourself, and like the way that a crab does, and crabs can actually outgrow their shells and then they need to like have a new home. And so is this a time where you might need to be thinking about, okay, in what ways have I limited myself because it's like what was comfortable, it was like this was my comfortable and safe space, and now this comfortable and safe space is restricting me, it's limiting me, and now I need to grow past it and create a new comfortable and safe space that is allowing me to grow. And then like that will feel amazing. And then it's interesting because when you do grow, what was comfortable and safe for you in the past can actually feel really bad later, right? Like if a crab literally grows and they go into like a new crab shell, they would literally not fit into the old crab shell anymore. And like that's kind of a mindset to be thinking about. This could also be a journal prompt for you. Maybe you think about what ways you want to kind of outgrow a certain shell, and maybe you also reflect back on old shells of yourself that you have already outgrown, and show yourself, remind yourself that you did that and that you wouldn't want to go back to that version. And so it makes sense that there might be parts of you now that like you're ready to release and shed, and it might feel hard in this moment, but future you is going to be so thankful to not go back to like a current part of you that exists today. If you are trying to think of some other activities to do with the full moon, anything related to water can be really good. If you do have some emotions you want to release, even just like taking a bath and then imagining after the bath is over that all those emotions are like going down the drain, you can do this in the shower. You can go to a body of water, you can get in a body of water. You can also even literally just drink some water that you have, like you kind of set the intention that as I drink this water, is cleansing out emotions that are no longer serving me. So water is really big for this full moon. All right, let's get into a tarot reading for you. So I want to take a look at really like, where are you right now? So that's a lot of the full moon, is the invitation to check on like, where are you at? So where is my YouTube collective in this moment in time? What's going on with them? Just kind of like an energetic check-in for my YouTube collective in this moment in time. Thank you, Spirit. Energetic collective for this moment in time. Energetic check-in. Okay. It's so literal. Okay, it's so funny because actually when I do like a card of the day for myself every single day, and the card that came out today for me was the moon, and then on the bottom of the deck, which I always like check for kind of like clarity, was the Chariot, and the Chariot represents Cancer. So I was like, okay, thank you. Like very literal, full moon in Cancer is definitely influencing me today. Okay, so we just got the Tower in reverse. This is literally Mars, and I mentioned how Mars is in retrograde and it's impacting things. So Mars in reverse is like Mars retrograde, okay? And then the Chariot, Cancer. So and Mars is literally retrograde in Cancer right now. So this energy is definitely coming up. So like, while yes, it is the full moon in Cancer, the fact that it's also with Mars retrograded in Cancer, that's also definitely influencing you. And so I feel like it's also an invitation to see like, are there things, these things that are unresolved from the past that you really have the chance to like resolve more fully now and hold more emotional space for? I think a lot of times, especially because we are in Capricorn season, where a lot of times you need to be more like practical and keep yourself moving, and you feel like I need to be productive, and if I allow myself to feel this right now, I'm not going to be able to be productive. I'm not going to be able to function the way I need to. And this is an opportunity for you to be like, actually, like sometimes that's helpful. And sometimes I do also need to feel my feelings. And I see the Queen of Cups on the bottom of the deck. She is able to both be that emotional, intuitive, highly intuitive person, emotional person, feel her emotions, experience her emotions, but also still like do all the other things that she needs to do. She's able to hold space for herself, be compassionate for herself, nurture herself, but also be able to operate in her day-to-day. And so like, that's kind of what's going on here. It's like, there's maybe some things that you had put to the side, and now it's like, you actually have the emotional strength to deal with these things instead of just shoving them down. And this is really the opportunity for you to do that. So you probably right away know what thing I'm talking about, and whatever that thing is, and it might be the thing where you're like, oh, I don't want to do that, and it's like, yeah, that's exactly the thing. Okay, and you are more capable of doing it than you think. Okay, so what can my collective rely on right now? How do they move through this time? What can they rely on? How can they move through this time? Thank you, Spirit. What can they rely on? How do they move through this? What can they rely on? How do they move through this? So it's interesting because a lot of times we avoid something that we think is going to be so hard and so painful, and we think it's going to like really overtake us. And a lot of times it's like, it's actually so much easier than we thought. And it is, yeah, it's so much easier than we thought. It takes less time than we thought. I'm even thinking about how, like, you know, sometimes we'll have something on our to-do list that like you have on your to-do list for so long, and like it actually only takes you like 10 minutes, but it's a task that you've been avoiding for like freaking 10 months. I'm definitely guilty of this all the time. And I feel like this is kind of similar, that maybe this is like a conversation that you've been avoiding with somebody, and you're so scared to have, and actually it's like creating so much tension and pressure with you and this other person, but it actually seems like the communication can go so much better than you think. And with the Knight of Crystals, it seems like it's like you can get things over with so much more quickly than you realize. I think you're like, oh, it's not going to go well. It's not Four of Cups here. It's not going to go well. It's going to be difficult. And actually the answer is like, let's just address it instead of like trying to push it aside, trying to find the perfect way for everything to go. Sometimes it's like you can just be direct, just like tackle something head on. You actually do have more energy to do that, and like a lot of these things you're gonna actually process through much more quickly than you think. So also, if there's certain emotions, like certain things that are coming up for you right now, and you're like, oh, I can't let myself feel it because I'm gonna get stuck in it, what I'm getting is like, actually you're gonna process through these emotions more quickly than you think you will, and you're gonna come out on the other side feeling so much better. With the Lover's card here, you're gonna feel so much more aligned. For example, let's say that you are worried that if you start crying about something that you're just going to be like crying forever. But if you actually really just let yourself start crying, like, yes, you can go into like a whole crying thing for sure sometimes, but a lot of times when you really let yourself feel the emotion, instead of like you start crying and then you're like, oh my God, I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel this. And you like, then when you keep on like pushing it down and letting it up and pushing it down and letting it up, like that kind of like, I'm imagining like pushing, like alternating so quickly. It's like driving with 2 feet, like gas and brake at the same time. Like, honestly, Chariot is kind of giving that too. Instead of being like push, pull, just like full force ahead with the Knight of Crystals and like just let it out, you oftentimes will process all the way through an emotion in 90 seconds. That is the average time. But we will push things down so deep inside of ourselves because we're so scared, and we'll only let it come out a little bit, and it feels so unbearable for like the first, 5-10 seconds. So we try to push it down again. We get scared of feeling it. So then that's actually the new feeling that we're experiencing instead of really letting the emotion out. And a lot of times you can process emotions through so much more quickly than you think. And I'm seeing you're truly capable of this with the High Priestess on the bottom of the deck. This is also giving very full moon vibes, very intuitive, very like feeling the feelings, divine feminine energy here. Nine of Cups is also emotional contentment and feeling safe in your emotions. So these are things that you can rely on in this time. So I really like that. This is really an opportunity, an invitation and opportunity. Those 2 words are coming up for how to move through some of these things and feel secure and comfortable in a new way. Okay. And are there any other lessons that this collective needs to understand for this full moon? Any other lessons that this collective needs to understand for this full moon? Any other lessons? So I got the Magician. This is also part of manifesting. So we're not really doing a ton of manifesting with the full moon. Okay, and it's really interesting to notice how like 1 card came out even though I shuffled through twice. And so to me, one of the things that tells us is that like the lessons I've already been talking about, like we've got them, right? So like those were the lessons. That's why I was like, are there any other lessons? So these are the lessons, but one other note is with the Magician that this is part of manifesting. When you are holding on to these suppressed emotions, you're still experiencing them somewhere in your body, somewhere in your subconscious, these uncomfortable emotions, and that's actually manifesting, okay? Whereas if you release these and then you have more space to experience other new things, then you'll actually be able to manifest more of what you truly want, more of this, emotional contentment, joy, peace, tranquility, serenity, things like that, alignment. You're going to feel more free with the Fool on the bottom of the deck as well. It does feel like this is a way to have more of a new beginning, and I really like this also with this full moon in Cancer. Of course, we just did have the new year, so if you're trying to just kind of have a little bit more of the clean slate, this is a way for you to do that. Stop, you know, bringing the same things with you year after year after year after year, and then just like repeating the same thing over and over. So this is how to manifest. Cool. Is there anything else that my collective can expect with this full moon in Cancer energy? Any other final notes? Anything else my collective can expect with this full moon in Cancer energy? Okay, so it's also just reminding me, yeah, okay, cool. It's also just reminding me, like, okay, it is still also balanced with Capricorn energy, King of Stars and the Devil. The Devil is just the Capricorn card, nothing to super worry about here. And it's funny because I, in addition to doing my own personal, like, daily reading, I also already did my own personal full moon in Cancer reading, and this was one of the cards that came out in my reading as well, in terms of, like, you know, what can I expect and moving forward. And so, like, I love that that's here too for everybody. And it is this energy of, like, that practicality is still going to be there. It's still a balance, right? Like, we are in Capricorn season. Capricorn and Cancer are sister signs, and, like, sister signs have a lot of, like, opposites though. And so, like, Capricorn is very practical. They also like that comfort and security, but it comes more from, like, the mind, the material, and the Cancer comfort and things like that. That's comfort and security comes from the emotional. And so it is like both, okay? And that in lots of ways, by you feeling more emotionally secure in dealing with your emotions, you will also feel and create more financial security, more practical security, in all those realms. And I think it is also just a reminder too, if there are any masculines that you feel like you are being unhealthily attached to, as you're reflecting on your, as you're reflecting on what you need to release, like, yeah, this is just like, hey, some of you might need that little message, okay, with the King of Stars and the Devil coming out. One final note with the Three of Stars, I'm just seeing this is also a really good Sun in Capricorn. It's really showing a lot of Capricorn energy. Like, just a reminder, we're in Capricorn season. We're still feeling that energy. But with the Three of Stars, if you are somebody who is in therapy, this can be a really good week to make sure you have a therapy session and maybe work on some more, like, old attachment things, stuff from the past. And if you're not in therapy and you've been feeling like called to start therapy, this would also be, maybe this is the time, and I feel like it's also like you have the finances to do therapy. Okay, and that's just like another little message that's coming through. You have that. January is a great time to start. So yeah, okay. Fool at the bottom of the deck, just confirming. Great time to begin that journey if you are not in therapy and it's something that you've been thinking about. This is a great time to get started on your mental health and wellness journey as well. So I hope that you found this reading helpful. If you're ever looking for more personal guidance on stuff like this, you can always book a personal tarot reading with me at my stan.store, stan.store/IntuitivelyBeth. I will link that in the comments as well, or in the description. And yeah, I hope that this is a really beautiful full moon for you, where you get to release those emotions that you need to let go of so that you can walk on this new path as your higher self.